Hello and good evening. Good evening to everyone here on tonight. We are grateful for all of you who have joined us here on this evening. Those who have come online via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and then for those of you who have gathered with us via the webinar, we're grateful to each and every one of you on tonight. Allow me to just to welcome each of you to our third Thursday talks. This month, the month of March, is Women's History Month, and we are honored today. We're honored tonight to have with us two very special guests. We're going to introduce those guests to us here on tonight, and we've tagged this segment. Champions of Hope, because we know women, Black women in particular, have been the cornerstone of every major movement of life, and have held our democracy together, and as well as our country together. And so we applaud and we celebrate and turn aside time to thank the women, not only in our life, but just women of this world, for nurturing our families, for their tenacity, their steadfastness, and in the workplace, and for their commitment to being change agents in every arena. And so today, and not just today, and not just this month, but we honor women, and we honor again, forgive me, but we honor again Black women in particular for being champions of hope, because they provide hope with the accomplishments that they have made in life, hope for women, their peers, but as well as hope for the little girl and those that are coming up behind them. And so we are grateful again for them for being examples by the lives that they have lived and the accomplishments that they have made. Allow me to take this time now to just introduce our guests on tonight. And listen, we have two dynamic women prominent sisters who have made tremendous marks in life and continue to make tremendous marks in life. One of our guests tonight is the Honorable Dr. Dorothy Jenkins Fields. She is a native of Overtown, and Dr. Fields, she grew up in a family where nights were spent telling all types of tales about Black life in Miami. In 1974, Dr. Fields, she was a teacher there at Myrtle Grove Elementary. She encountered a conversation that changed her life. In her search for Black history books for Miami's bicentennial, she journeyed to the downtown library and found nothing but obituaries in a small folder. And upon speaking to the librarian on the lack of materials, Dr. Fields, she was speechless from the response to which she stated, I guess those people, or rather the response that was given to her that stated, I guess those people haven't thought enough of themselves to write their history, was the response given to her. And so she knew this wasn't true because her family had a knack for storytelling. And this was the beginning of Dr. Fields' motivation to preserve Black Miami, her Miami, which led her to establish the Black Archives in 1977. And as a librarian with the Miami-Dade County Public Schools, she wrote a book and designed a curriculum about Black history. In her research, she realized that the project needed a home to archive the materials. In addition to preserving our history, Dr. Fields, she went on to help save local landmarks. That includes the Lyric Theater and the Chapman House, home of Miami's first African-American doctor. 5 decades later, the Black Archives is a living monument of the sacrifices of thousands of people who came before her, where researchers from universities, various media outlets, scholars, they have used this collection that Dr. Fields has played a pivotal role in accumulating to learn about the Black experiences in the urban South. Now that's just a snippet of some of the accomplishments that our guest, one of our panelists here on tonight, Dr. Fields, has accomplished. Allow me to say to you, welcome, Dr. Fields. Can you give us some greetings here on tonight, Dr. Fields?
Well, thank you. You've done it all. I think I just say amen, and I can turn my camera off, and because I'm anxious to hear what the judge has to say.
Listen, we are grateful to have you here on tonight, and sometimes people are close to greatness and don't recognize that greatness. And you, Dr. Fields, you epitomize and embody what it means to be great. And so we owe you a lot of debt and gratitude for all of the work that you have done here in South Florida and just the impact across the nation. I mean, because it's not just a Miami thing. It's not just a South Florida thing. It is a national piece that is recognized throughout the country. And so again, we say thank you again on tonight.
Well, it's exciting, and I'm happy to be here, and I'll just follow the flow.
Sounds great. Well, listen, allow me to take and to introduce our other panelists here on tonight. Our next panelist and our second guest here on tonight that's with us, she is a champion of hope as well, just as Dr. Fields is a champion of hope, and it is the Honorable Alicia Lattimore. Just a little bit about this trailblazer, because just as Dr. Fields has this extensive background of accomplishments, so too does this guest. Judge Lattimore is a native Floridian, born and reared here in Miami-Dade County. She earned her Bachelor of Science degree in psychology from Duke University and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Florida. She is the first African-American female to hold the position of circuit judge. In the history of the Florida Ninth Judicial Circuit, serving in the felony criminal juvenile delinquency and juvenile dependency, domestic violence, and unified family court divisions. Judge Lattimore is presently an administrative judge for the Ninth Circuit Problem Solving Courts Division, presiding over a total of nine treatment courts for Orange and Osceola counties. And in her spare time, she serves on the executive committee of the Florida Conference of Circuit Judges, the Florida Bar Committee on Mental Health and Wellness, the board of directors for the Florida Association of Infant Mental Health, and is chair of the Florida Judicial Wellness Program. Judge Lattimore, she chairs the Dependency Court Improvement Panel and is a member of the Florida Steering Committee on Families and Children in the court. She teaches juvenile law as a adjunct professor at Barry University School of Law. As well, my daughter attends there. She's in her third year. So I just want to give a shout out to my daughter, Morgan. Go ahead and graduate, baby. She is a professional speaker on topics related to children, families, and wellness, and enjoys being the host of the Ninth Judicial Circuit's Ninth Unplugged podcast, cooking, listening to music, and serving her community as a member and officer of the Psi Theta chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So listen, that is a mouthful. And we are tremendously honored to have you, Judge Lattimore.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, and it is my honor to be present, not only with you as well as Dr. Fields, but just to be able to speak to everyone on the topic. I think we're going to have a great time discussing, and just knowing that I get to have a good conversation with my people from Miami. So I'm looking forward to it, and I know it's going to be a wonderful occasion. So again, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Listen, thank the both of you, and both of you fit directly with the topic that we tagged tonight's session, talking about champions of hope. And you both provide hope for sisters, women in general, with the accomplishments that the both of you have made, and Dr. Fields, and how you sat out to make sure to preserve the history so that people would know the story. You both are champions of hope. And so we'll dive right into it. We have a few questions, just to spur a little conversation that we'll talk about here on tonight. And hopefully it is informative to our listeners, and to those of you that are on Facebook. You have the opportunity to write within the Facebook comment section to type in some questions that you may have. And then for those that are on with us who are on the webinar, you can, in the chat section, also, share some of your thoughts and questions as well. And so, Dr. Fields, you're known as a trailblazer, in Miami-Dade County. I talked just a little bit about a life-changing moment for you. Can you share with us, maybe a couple of life-changing memories that you believe that created this honor that is applied to you as being a trailblazer in Miami-Dade County?
Yes, well, again, you started off telling the story. I was fascinating as I was listening to you. But I really gave it some thought, and I can think of two life-changing telephone calls related to what I'm doing. And I don't call it work because it's so much a part of me. It's not work at all. Well, the first one, and they were decades apart. The first one I made, and then the second one was a phone call that I received. And the first one, as you have stated, was in 1974, as I was preparing for the bicentennial. I had two babies, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and a then husband in law school. So I had a full-time job, and I was at an all-white school. Believe it or not, Myrtle Grove and Opelika at that time was all white.
Wow.
And I remember the first day I got there, I didn't realize that I was the first Black teacher there, first Black librarian. And I sort of bumped into the 4th grade teacher, And she looked at me and said, "You haven't cleaned my room." Well, she had a Louis Vuitton and so did I. But I guess she thought I got mine from the flea market, and maybe I did, I'm not sure. But it was that kind of atmosphere where the library clerk, for instance, resigned after 6 months because she just could not stand the fact that a Negro was her superior.
Mm.
So growing up as a young person trying to start a family, trying to start a career, it was difficult. So when I called the library, because I didn't want to have to put the children in the car. There were not even car seats there weren't car seats at the time. And so I didn't want to take the chance of getting them downtown and having a problem. So I called the library. And even though I was a librarian and I had been at Spelman for 4 years, and I thought maybe somebody had written a book while I was in college, and that I just didn't have any. So when I called, I expected her to say, "Oh yes, we have 15 or 20 books for you. And you can just pull your car up and sign them out and be done." But that was not the case. She put me on hold, came back after what seemed like an enormous length of time and said, "No, we only have a folder with obituaries about Black people." I said, "Well, now this is the downtown Miami library. How many books are in the library?" She said, "Oh, about 10,000. And I said, "You only have a folder with obituaries?" And it was her answer that changed my life and the life of the community as relates to Black history. And the answer she gave, as you said, she said, "I guess those people haven't thought enough of themselves to write their history." Wow. And that stunned me then, and it stuns me now. And I was really not an active person necessarily, but it really changed the narrative for me because I knew that by 1974, if no book had been written, there had to be a book. And then as I talked with my relatives and we talked about early Miami, they said, "Well, no, not one book. Maybe you need to collect. You're a teacher. You need to collect photographs and documents so that many books can be written, so that videos can be made." And so the idea of establishing an archives, family sent me to Emory University to get certification in archives administration. And from there, believe it or not, at age 50, I went back to school to earn a PhD in, I see you stretching your eyes. Count your fingers. Yes, I said it. I went back to school, got a loan, a student loan. And it was so interesting because as I was signing the loan papers, the woman looked up at me and she said, "You're going to be 70 paying that back." And she was right. But it was worth the effort. Wow. To be able to get the formal training, to be able to put this together so that future generations will know the story of the Black experience in Miami-Dade County from 1896 to the present.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful and inspirational for you to, you talked about at 50, and yes, it was an eye-stretching moment for me because some people, no, not 50 from the aspect of trying to count how blessed you have been, how long you've been on this planet. No, not from that perspective, but because somebody could hear this story that you just shared to say at 50, you were motivated to go back to school. Yes. Someone, just PhD, correct, at that time, right?
Yes.
PhD. So someone hearing that testimony, that's a nugget in the jewel in and of itself that can inspire someone who may think, "Hey, listen, at 50, it's too late. I've already lived my life." But to hear that testimony and then to see the fruits from making such a decision, it's awesome. It's awesome, and I believe it should be an encourager to our listeners here on tonight. Just Lattimore, first African-American female to hold a position of circuit judge in the history of Florida. So, all of this history making on this call on tonight, on this third Thursday talk on tonight, for the Florida Ninth Judicial Circuit, serving in the felony criminal juvenile delinquency and juvenile dependency, domestic violence, and Unified Family Court Division. So that's a mouthful, but I can imagine a tall feat as well. What was that honor like for you? And then how did you navigate such a responsibility, being the first to hold that position?
Well, of course, it was a great honor when I was appointed by the governor in 2005 to hold that position. I relocated from Miami to Orlando, Florida after graduating from law school, and practiced in a couple of firms, smaller firms while I was there, and then opened my own law practice. And so I was able to just kind of get the view of the land in regards to who was practicing there, who was on the bench, who was achieving and moving up in the area of the legal community, and noticed that as Black attorneys, we all were really working very hard to one, show that we were capable, just as capable, if not more capable, of representing the community, as well as holding certain positions in the larger law firms, holding positions in other legal institutions, and just being trailblazers for our community. We often would just meet that roadblock, often finding that no matter how often we showed our credentials, our accomplishments, our motivation, and all that we had already accomplished, we would often be met with come back another time, or go get some more experience, try it again. Wow. And I was not the type to just go away. I'm just kind of like that little net that will keep coming back. And so okay, I'll be back. Okay. And so when the opportunity came, it actually was something that was suggested to me by a white female judge, who suggested that I consider putting my name in for that circuit judge's position, because we had not had anyone in the position before. And it took me a few times to apply. And actually it was over a 10-year period of several applications, after which I was ultimately selected by a governor to sit on the bench. It was definitely rewarding in the sense that all of the work that I had put into that, all the work that I had done up to that point, finally got me to a position where I thought that I would be able to have some influence and some effect on my community, Black people. I can be there to meet them, because it makes a difference to the community as to how they perceive the judiciary when they get to see somebody that looks like them. And therefore, when that is absent, it is difficult. It's already difficult in some other ways to have the confidence that the judicial branch is really looking after the interest of minorities and poor people and other groups of individuals. But particularly when someone cannot find someone who can share their experience in life, share their experience within their community, share the struggles and the challenges that they may have in their lived experiences. So I thought it was just amazing that I would have the position. So I wanted it. I was excited about having it. And then when I got it, I was like, oh boy, okay, because it was a lot. I knew the responsibility that I had just been granted and blessed with. And I wanted to make sure that I upheld and I kept my word to my community, that I was going to be not only a role model and a good example of what a Black lawyer and a Black jurist could do, but that I was also going to be something that would be an inspiration for those who would come behind me to follow and to do even greater things than I've ever done. So the honor of being able to be appointed as the first was, an amazing blessing that I received. Surely when I got on the bench, it was a true learning lesson. It was, of course, a predominantly white male profession. And that has changed over the years. Now it is, at least in our jurisdiction, it is almost 50-50 for us when it comes to women and men, not with Black women and Black men, but when it comes to just the genders, it is closer. But at that time when I was appointed, there were very few women, and it was a predominantly white male profession. And therefore, it was a matter of learning how to basically survive in that atmosphere. There was opportunities for criticism for things that I did or rulings that I made that might not have been given to others. There were opportunities to suggest that the only reason that I was there was because I was Black, not because of any other accomplishments or accolades that I might have had on my resume, or the fact that I may have had a good education, et cetera, or that I was smart enough or good enough to hold the position. So it was a matter of understanding those challenges, but not letting those challenges cripple me or keep me from doing what I had been placed there to do. So it was an honor, and I still find it an honor to still be able to be on the bench and to continue to hold the position, and now be joined by other Black women on the circuit bench in our jurisdiction and around the state.
Awesome, awesome. Listen, so both of you, and then Judge, as you were just sharing, I'm just sitting and still just, basking in the amount of accomplishments, and then the glass ceilings that we often hear that phraseology utilized when we come to talk about women and Black women in particular, and the accomplishments that they have made, and having to break through, this invisible cap that placed limitations or stated that women could not do A or could not do B or should not hold particular positions of, within our community. And which led us to this theme talking about champions of hope. And when you think about champions of hope, I want to hear from the both of you. What comes to mind when you hear champions of hope? Who were some of your inspirations? Because there may have been some persons that were setting marks, standards, breakthroughs as you all were coming up, or perhaps as you were making your moves in life, there were no examples, and you had to manufacture your own. So when you think about champion of hope, what comes to mind? What were some of your inspirations? I'll open it up. I want to hear from both of you on that piece. What comes to mind? Who were some of your inspirations? If I was trying to aspire to be a judge or a lawyer for that matter, if I, Dr. Fields, to be an educator and to not see, people of color, Black people represented in the city that you live in, what were some of your inspirations? Who were champions of hope? And then if there were none, what was it that kind of, gave you that push to say, listen, I'm going to press for this particular goal. I'm going to set out and I'm going to do this.
Well, I guess as the pioneer, I can start off. Again, I'm excited about the Honorable Alicia Lattimore and, of course, Judge Jackson, who is the first woman nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court. And I have to reflect on the time when there were no Black women attorneys in Miami-Dade County. I was active in high school, and it was suggested once or twice by Uncle John that I become a lawyer. And of course, he would laugh, ha, 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 why don't you be a lawyer? Well, Uncle John was my mother's youngest brother, the youngest of 7. And as it turns out, he was John D. Johnson, the second Black judge in Miami and the 4th in the state of Florida. Having a niece or any woman as a lawyer was something that was just a joke. He just could not even imagine it. When Juanita Madison, who is one of your church members, and I were in high school, there were no Black women lawyers in Miami. In fact, Gwen Cherry was a teacher at Miami Northwestern. And she didn't go to law school until early 60s. I graduated from Booker T in 1960. And of course, the rest is history, because Leah Sims, later in the 90s, I guess, late 90s, became the first Black judge. So we finally had females in the judiciary. It's been a long haul, but now to see, certainly not enough, but a number in the judiciary is very exciting. And so, Judge Lattimore, let's hear from you. I know you have plenty to say.
Well, you know, honestly, I can think of several people who, of course, I can tag or label as champions of hope. I mean, we have many Black women who are now, as Dr. Fields indicated, are in positions in the judiciary, not only at the trial level, but also the appellate level, the federal level. And now we have our nominee, who we are very happy and proud of, and should be appointed to the United States Supreme Court. So, you know, with that, I definitely can indicate that when I was growing up, I can tell you, I'm just going to be honest and transparent. I didn't think to be a lawyer first. I wanted to be a doctor when I went off to college. And I actually was joined there by my two cousins, Tedra and Tadra Anderson. And I met organic chemistry, which was not my friend. Okay, so when I met organic chemistry, it was a regroup and, you know, let's reroute here. My cousins were successful and both are now Black female doctors. And so that was just in itself, having someone who was in college with that was motivating in its own, on its own right. But I ultimately came home and started working, and I had a birthday come around. And on my birthday, I received a gift from my parents, and it was wrapped in beautiful gold paper. I remember, with a big red bow on it. I opened it up, and it turned out that it was the study guide for the LSAT. And so I tell you that story because, one, that's the start of my legal career, because they gave me a workbook to take the LSAT in preparation for admission into law school. And you know, and that led the way. But I tell you that because, you know, I think more than anything, because at the time when I started that journey, I didn't know any Black lawyers. When I went to law school, I remember the first class that I'm into, or going to the law school to prepare, and they told me, you know, you have to read the case law, read cases. And I said, what are cases? Because other than other communities, I didn't have a relative where I could go sit in their law office and learn about law books and statutes and rules and case law, all that. I didn't have that type of exposure. I did know about, of course, Shirley Chisholm. I knew about Arthenia Joyner. I knew about Elsie Hastings. I knew all of those names, but I did not have that personal experience like many have, who may not have come from my community. And so with that, my motivators, my champions of hope, were other women who were in my community, who were role models and inspirations for me to accomplish and be successful. Whether I was going to be a doctor or whether I was going to be a lawyer, whatever it was that I was going to choose to do for my career, my profession, or my future, they were the motivators and the champions of hope that said that I can do it. If I worked hard and I did what it was necessary, and there was nothing that can keep me from accomplishing that but myself. So I say, to me, it was the women and the caregivers, the nurturers, the mothers, the grandmothers, all of them. And, you know, the neighbor, Miss Sally, who was down the street, Miss Susie, you know, who would discipline you before your mama got home to discipline you. Okay, those were my champions of hope. And, you know, I think they really did make a big difference, and they continue to make a big difference in our Black women's lives.
So along the road for the both of you, and being met with the amount of success that you've been met with, you needed something to sustain you. You know, Dr. Fields, you know, down through the years, you know, I know you've had to have been met with various challenges and roadblocks. same thing with you, Judge Lattimore. What were some of, what was the secret? Yeah, what was the secret? Because, it's like tasting a good cake or you eat a good meal and it's like, man, what was the secret spice that sets, that meal apart? So what was your secret, or is there a secret to to help you sustain, to not give up, along that road to becoming a judge? What was that secret to helping you to sustainability, Dr. Fields, to not give up, to go in and not see our stories, to not see our history? And I'm sure that you, perhaps even Dr. Fields, have run into challenges with archiving the Black archives. I'm quite sure that there were
No,
challenges within Miami-Dade County where
no.
where people did not want it. They were like already on board, yay, and rooting and cheering, like, hey, let's do this. So what were some of the things that sustained you throughout the history, throughout your both of your journeys? Dr. Fields.
Well, it was family, and the narratives that I heard, the stories that they told over and over and over again. The family relocated here or immigrated here in 1903, just a few years after Flagler extended the railroad from Palm Beach to Miami. And they were supposed to have lived in Coconut Grove. Thelma Gibson is one of our cousins. So I don't know whether we're related on the Anderson side or the other side.
Oh, you mean the both of you, Dr. Fields?
The two of us.
Yes, the two of us.
Wow. Listen to this.
We're from Harbor Island, Bahamas.
Mhm.
And my grandmother wanted to, the old-fashioned way, she wanted to get married and have children, come to the States. And she had heard that Black people in the States were doing well in Jacksonville and Atlanta. So she wanted to get to Atlanta or Jacksonville with these children that she didn't have, so that they would be educated. Got to Key West and had 2 children, and got to Colortown, Overtown, and had 5 children. Within 13 years, there were 7 children. Living right off Avenue G, which is now Northwest 2nd Avenue, where the old Lyric faces. And I say all of that to say that it was, again, their stories of their struggles and their successes. When I was born, my mother, her 2 sisters, 4 brothers were all college graduates. 2 were already medical doctors, one in family medicine and the other one radiology, had board certified in radiology. One, a lawyer who later became, again, the 2nd Black judge in Miami, 4th in the state of Florida, and the others teachers. So I thought that everybody had a family like that. And it was that family that sustained me once they realized that I was dedicated to saving the community's history through photographs and documents and stories, that they would help. And so my mother in her retirement would go to the credit union and borrow money to pay staff. Uncles would give me money to travel. Really, it was the family that sustained me as I realized that this was my calling. I try to say to young people and old people too, that I believe that we're all here for a purpose. Absolutely. And sometimes you have to ask for it. I always wanted to know what it was that I was supposed to do. I used to pray for that. And I thought it was going to be money that was going to drop down out of the sky. I kept waiting for it to, I'm still waiting. But it was more than that. It was the history that I was to collect. And for your listeners and those who are watching, think about purpose and ask for it and look for it. Many times it's there and you don't recognize it. But it's important to And when you help other people, you help yourself many times. And so I'm sustained by family.
So just Lattimore.
I would have to completely agree with that. I mean, I think that that was in fact what it allowed me to continue, and even when I met my most difficult challenges, it had to be family, but just understanding, the trials that they came through, the obstacles that they met, and the fact that it was so much more difficult for my parents' parents to be successful, but they were in their own right, and they worked hard for that. I was the first in my family, my nuclear family, to graduate from college. But my father was an entrepreneur and had businesses and owned land, and he did that not because he was, born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He worked hard, very hard, to accomplish the things that he did, and in fact, ultimately had the contract for all the window treatments for all of the Dade County buildings. And so with that, he was very successful in that business, which led him to venture into other areas. And so he was successful, but it was based on hard work. My grandfather had a shoe store, and on his brother's shoe store is down in Coconut Grove. So that hard work, those examples were given to me, and they were actually inspirations for me to continue to accomplish those dreams that I had. I knew that what I was doing was not just about me. It wasn't just about me. It was about continuing the legacy that had already been started way before me. And it was about ensuring that I stood as a role model for those little girls and little boys who might be able to come around me and look up to me, and let them know that they could continue the legacy of their family, or start a legacy if it had not been started yet. No matter what the challenges were, what the obstacles are, it is a matter of saying that no one else gets to write your biography. Nobody else gets to determine who you are, or what you will be. And that is based on our ancestors, that's based on family. And I think, my grandmother would take me to church all the time. And so I had at a young age of stable faith in God. And I knew that I had to lean on him sometimes, when I wasn't doing the right thing. I might not have been leaning on him the right time, but there was, ultimately I knew, and it was planted at an early age, that to have faith and know that with Christ's help I could accomplish those things, despite what that illusion was in front of me that told me differently. And so I think that really was my motivating factor to get through all of those storms and challenges.
Awesome. So we had a comment chime in. I believe, Dr. Fields, when you brought up Ms. Gibson, I believe the comment here is saying, yes, the relation may be through Aunt Thelma Anderson Gibson. So that is the family connection, the string that binds.
Aunt Thelma is the connection.
Yes.
Yes, she is.
It's a small world.
Yes.
Wow, this is awesome. So listen, and we know that the two of you are examples of women, Black women, who have made accomplishments. We're celebrating Women's History Month, but listen, every day we ought to celebrate the women in our lives and just the women in the world in general. What are some of the present impediments that you feel that show themselves to be the enemy of progress or the enemy of accomplishment, but Black women in general? Some of those impediments, that presently we know. And Dr. Fields, you can perhaps even touch on what were some of those impediments from the past that prevented Black women from the various accomplishments that we see being made presently and some in our past. But what were some of those impediments? And then Judge Lattimore, I want to intertwine the two. Those impediments that you see that were there when you were going through law school and before you made it to the bench. Some of those impediments, and then perhaps what do you see in your own eyes and view as some present impediments that exist today.
Well, I would say that, of course, the washerwomen and the nannies, the women, the Black women who actually nursed the white babies, the chambermaids, this whole era of segregation was just an impediment and an obstruction to family, to the Black community. But fast forward, I'm going to say that sometimes we are our own impediment. I don't know that we as Black women understand and realize our place in history now. Think about the women who are in positions of authority. Think about where we are and where we still need to go. I'm choosing my words very carefully.
Okay.
And I'm going to be brief on this because I don't want to be political. But history is made every day. And through our church families, our sororities, our social and civic organizations, more Black women must get involved in policymaking in local, state, national, and international government. Our sororities, our civic and social organizations are fine. We can continue to have our parties and get our nails done every week and all of that. But if we don't come together and encourage our people to register and vote, the progress that we have made can very easily be lost. People must understand that if they had the sign-in votes, ballots, mail-in ballots last year or for the last election, that they must re-register. When I said that to a group the other day, they said, oh, well, we put it in the church bulletin. I said, that's not enough. That is not enough. People will read the church bulletin, see it, and put it aside. But we have to, on the ground level, begin to knock on doors. This is 2022. And talk with people, answer questions. A lot of people are not tech savvy, so they're not going to know what to do or how to do it. And Stacey Abrams and many others are doing it around the country, but there's got to be a groundswell with the voting and becoming policy makers. It's not enough to be the bacillus in a sorority. What are you doing in the community? What boards do you sit on? How are you helping to make policy? Amen.
Amen. Judge, what are some? No, listen. Hey, we have to. Someone has to sound the horn and ring the bell. And if we don't, as you stated, Dr. Fields, we become our own impediment. You know, if we are just focused on, you know, the beautifying of ourselves, hands done, feet done, hair, and parties and gatherings and fraternities and sororities. I'll stick the brothers in there as well. If that is our only focus,
shame on us.
Yeah, shame on us. The wool will be pulled over our eyes, and the opportunities to vote, to participate, to make policies, to make sure that the cracks in the ceiling continue to make other veins and open up other doors and opportunities. They will find themselves being closed. We won't even realize that there's a movement afoot, as what's that old Shakespearean language? There's a movement afoot that is plastering up all of the cracks that we've made, all of the holes and doors that we've opened, they will be closed. And so, yes, no, I thank you, because you just made me think about something for another conversation that needs to be held. And so I applaud you. Judge, what do you feel? Some of the impediments that you personally saw along the way? And then in your view, what are some of the present impediments that you see here on today?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that many of the impediments that were present for Black women as I was growing up and coming in my younger days, actually still exist for us even now, even though there may have been some ebb and flow in the progress of them. But when we're speaking of, unequal pay and, the challenge or the war on the reproductive rights and our access, the inability to break that glass ceiling, as we were speaking of earlier. I mean, I think that this goes to why it is so important, how significant it is to have Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson nominated as an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, because this is someone who, if placed in that position, will have some ability to try at least. We have to consider the majority and the minority of the bench, but she's in a position to have a long-term effect and influence as to the rights and liberties that we as people and we as Black women will have in the future. And so, that is really important and so significant. I do want everyone to understand that, and I think you can see that with one example, that just because somebody's Black and gets on the bench doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to rule in a manner in which you might think it is beneficial to our community. There are other things that come into play. They have to consider, the fact is that judges are constrained by the law. And we have to follow the law, and there's whether or not a judge what the judge's judicial philosophy is may play in there. Politics are not supposed to be in there, but times are seeming to change. So there are several factors that play into how a justice might rule, but it is always important for us to have someone who might represent the experiences that we have as Black individuals in this country. So I think that, even though there may have been some advancement forward in some of those areas that were impediments or obstacles as we were growing up, they still exist, and there's still much room for improvement. One thing that I would like to say, though, is when it comes to Black women, is that we need to stop being our own enemies. I think that so often Black women target each other as the enemy. We are competing against each other more so than we might compete against someone else. And we're not each other's enemies. We are actually each other's ally who can work together. And if we would unite, we actually would have a significant presence in ability to make change in our country. So I think that is one of the impediments that's existed. As I sit and look at families that come before me in the courts and having instances of being in civil injunction cases where Black mothers are fighting each other in front of their children, those are the cases that keep me up at night. Because we need to be examples for our children, and we don't need to be each other's enemy. That is not necessary. And until we overcome that, I think we are going to hold back the advancements that we can make.
So listen, our call tonight, our time together tonight is coming to a close, but it would do this setting injustice if I did not get an opportunity, and our listeners didn't get an opportunity to hear your thoughts on President Biden having nominated Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson for Associate Justice of the United State Supreme Court. I want to hear your thoughts on that. I mean, this is history just for her being nominated.
Absolutely.
She listen, also had to put in a plug, this Miami native, yay, Miami, all of this greatness coming out of South Florida. What are your thoughts? And then after we hear that, then we'll come back around to hear your closing thoughts as we begin to wrap up our time here on tonight. And so what are your thoughts about President Biden making this nomination, this historical nomination of the Honorable Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson? What are your thoughts on that?
Dr. Fields?
I like to hear both. I want to hear both of your thoughts. I mean, it's you have both unique perspectives, and this is happening in our lifetime.
From not having a Black woman lawyer, forget about judge, from not having the presence of a Black woman lawyer, not even thinking that a woman could become a lawyer, to live long enough to see a Black woman, and from Miami, we had to look at that twice. What? From Miami?
Yes.
Nominated to the Supreme Court. I think it's overdue. Let me just say it that way. It's overdue. And certainly it's an opportunity for all of us to realize the power within us, the power of moving forward. And we should not continue to compete, as the judge has said, as we so often do. Mm-hmm. There's too much to be done for us to be catty and concerned about what we're wearing and where we're going and that kind of thing. We don't want to lose the momentum. And certainly Judge Jackson is a great start.
Yes, and I was going to say it's about time. It's about time that a Black woman was nominated. This is something that is past due, and it's no secret that it should have been done prior to now. I'm grateful that it has been done by President Biden, but it is surely there is surely no lack of qualified judges, Black female judges that we have that could have been appointed to the Supreme Court prior to now. So I'm happy that she has been nominated. I applaud President Biden for doing the right thing. And also I hope that she is granted a fair process and allowed to proceed on just as anyone else who might have been considered who was not a Black female. We know that probably is not as likely though, but this is significant in the sense that we will, if she is appointed, we will have someone who can bring with her the experiences and the perspective of Black people in this country, understanding our history, understanding our challenges, and understanding that her ruling is going to have an impact on not just Black people, but the whole entire country and for years and years to come. But I think, to have a Black woman who appreciates that and is totally qualified, completely qualified to hold that position is just a blessing. And I hope and I pray that she will be successful.
Absolutely. Just a note for all of our listening audience, the hearings for Judge Brown Jackson, it begins on Monday, March 21st. They'll have statements from the committee members, the individuals who will introduce Judge Jackson and Judge Jackson herself. That begins Monday, March 21st. And then her questioning then will begin, it's slated to begin Tuesday, March 22nd, and will continue on Wednesday through Wednesday, March 23rd. And so the hearings are scheduled to conclude on Thursday, March 24th. with testimony from the American Bar Association and additional outside witnesses. And so we have history that is right on the cusp, beginning on Monday, March 21st. And so tune in, give an ear. I mean, witness this history in the making, as Judge Jackson, as she goes through her process with this nomination. And so, listen, we want to begin to wrap up here on tonight, and I want to conclude here on tonight with having just some closing remarks from both of these honorable guests that we have here on tonight. We discovered, I'm going to lay claim to this, we discovered that they are related. Yes, y'all put it down. That's history. Dr. Fields, you put that in the archives, okay?
Yes.
And so we're going to conclude tonight with hearing from both of our guests closing comments and remarks that both of these ladies are champions of hope. They have provided hope. They are giving hope to others, men and women, but mainly to our women. They provide hope. And so we want to hear closing remarks, Dr. Fields, Judge Lattimore, and then we will bid our audience and our time adieu here on tonight.
I just close by saying that it certainly has been a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And this is a wonderful platform on which to reach the community. And I certainly hope that you will continue. I appreciate meeting my cousin. Miami is a small town. I hope that her side of the family is doing the genealogy so we can actually see what the connection is. But that's, the genealogy is very important as we look into family and connect with family. So thank you so much, Dr. Judge, Pastor Johnny Barber. I've given you all kind of titles tonight.
Claim it. It's not too late to go back to school. You
I know.
Yes, that's right.
I know. Listen, I got that inspiration on tonight.
Yes.
I did. Thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Yes.
Judge, can you bless us this evening?
Oh, yes.
Remarks.
Yes, yes. And again, I join that. Thank you so much for the invitation. This has been just a wonderful experience. And being here is just such an honor to be here with Dr. Fields and to meet her and to hear all of the history and the wonderful statements that she's been able to share with us. And, I just want to just say something to those who might be listening and joining us this evening. I want to thank you, Pastor, for honoring women and particularly honoring Black women. And I want our Black women to remember that this is not just about you. This is about those who came before you and those who are coming after you. You don't have to have a law degree. You don't have to have a doctor's license. You don't have to have anything to be a champion of hope. All you need is the Spirit of God within you and a desire to make a difference. And so I encourage you to do that. I mean, to think outside of just, maybe your little shadow and work towards making a difference for that one person or that one child who may be able to be inspired by you. So thank you again for having me. And it has been wonderful. And I'll catch up with you, cuz.
All right.
I love it. I love it. Beautiful. Listen, to all of our viewing audience, those that have joined on the webinar, and then as well to all of those on Facebook and to YouTube, we thank you for tuning in. This and tonight's Thursday talk, it will be available on all of our platforms. You can always go back and rewatch and be fed all over again and inspired all over again as we celebrate Women's History Month and Champions of Hope. And we have had two great panelists who in their own rights are champions of hope. I believe their lives, I believe the accomplishments, I believe all that they have gone through, it provides hope to us all, but in particularly as we focus on Women's History Month, in particularly to women. So listen, God bless each of you. And again, we say thank you, Dr. Fields. We say thank you, Judge Lattimore, we thank you very much. God bless you. To our audience, we're going to sign off.